I would also argue way more people watched StarCraft 2 when it was a 6-worker start, so you can say it was more boring, but more people watched when it was 6 workers. It could have been 28 workers at the start of StarCraft 2 and more people would have watched. I mean, after game release was by far the highest peak. You could say that people stopped watching because of the 6-worker start as well. You know? All of these arguments could be made. The highest percentage loss was with the 6-worker start. I think if you're trying to look at like that type of statistics, it's really hard to interpret anything meaningfully. Because yes, the highest player base was with 6 workers, but also the highest player loss was with 6 workers. Like, player base, viewer base has been relatively stable since 12 workers, despite absolutely no new content in like the past 8 years or so. Wings of Liberty by itself, I think, had very poor longevity. Like, I don't think it was a very good game, if you look back at a lot of the metas, how stuff played out. Like, it's really hard to grow if you release absolutely zero new content in a game. Whether that's some type of player mods, or patches, or changes to units. It's just really difficult. I feel like I can go deep into small details about the start of the game when it used to be 6 workers and early game micro was more impactful and making small decisions to set you up for later. But I can read the room, seems mine and Artos's opinion is still in the minority. You can make the arguments. You don't have to... I'm always open for good arguments. I've just never seen very good arguments for a 6-worker start. I don't think early game micro was more impactful. I think one of the main... Like, I think you should just judge by how it looks and how it feels. And I think if you go back and watch one of these games now, you'll realize that it actually wasn't that great. Like, there's a lot of freaking death time in Wings of Liberty. Like, a lot of freaking death time. Okay.
Looking intense and didn't wall in at first DC last time and then reload.
I'll keep a notepad open as well, so I can write any action that happens.
Thing here as once again, good luck, have fun is being thrown out by our players now, and Marine King going to build that barracks inside of his.
So first barrack goes down 1 minute 40 seconds, but this is StarCraft time, so it's a little bit different. Still, we'll count it.
Eventually be able to transition over that in a bit though. Once he gets up that expansion and gas, if he decides to go down the no gas route once again.
Really, still don't understand what the positioning of the barracks is for, particularly. I mean, as Terran, it's so important everywhere you place every bit to the previous game. King follows this build planned out so.
Producing those 2 queens, nothing looks terribly different for him either. If he pulls off at 100 gas exactly once again, doesn't even leave 1 drone in there. Looks like we may be headed down for a repeat.
Indeed. Now, Stefano did grab a relatively early third in the last game. We'll have to see if he does that again. He could contour very early second.
Flying crawler up at the front, just droning to his.
It's a drone rast.
And also, 3 healings being produced at a time that far, so
Now, creep tumors and
round of drone similar to what he did last game.
Okay, so we have our first interaction 7 minutes in. First interaction at 7:07. And you said that you felt that fights were more micro-intensive. This just seems the exact same right now. Hellion versus a spine crawler.
7 roaches on the way right now.
Oh, that's a ton of roaches that are popping up. Now the first 5 have made their way out. 12 more lanes after that. We'll see if he does a round of drone similar to what he did last game, or if he's just going to continue to flood in units after this. Our first tank is coming out now for Marine King, but he can't start siege mode, of course, as Blue Flame is still not finished. But Marine King still feeling confident enough to put down a 3rd command center right now.
Oh no, Marine King could be in a lot of trouble here. We have 8 all-in coming out of Stefano. 16 more Zerglings are joining the pursuit.
This is a roach all-in that hits 8 minutes into the game.
No bunker for Marine King. No bunker.
The Zerglings have ran on by. We'll see how much damage they take. Very nice shot by Stefano to run off to the side, trying to trap these in with the roaches. He will push them back just a little bit. As a few units
I feel like this is still exactly the same, except it just happens faster. Roachling Bane.
Pulls back instinctively. Oh, it's wide open. I'll come in there and take out all your SCVs. Here come the Banelings up the front door. Take out all this bloody post and the reactor. That is huge. This is so hard to hold off. Picking up the reactor so smart. He's gonna grab a couple of tanks here as well. The first one goes down.
Like, I don't see what the 6-worker start here did better, except just delay the first contact by 2-3 minutes. And now the game is over, I guess.
Marine King needs to find a way to stabilize. His tank pops out just in the nick of time to help out with these roaches. Can he take out
Actually, he doesn't even have a
Lings coming from
third.
behind for the potential surround on the siege tank. He might be able to flank the tank, and he does.
Yeah, the Hellions are not being repaired quick enough, so we'll see if these Lings can be enough to kill. And they will. The tank is going to go down. There are a bunch of Hellions still out there being repaired up by the SCVs as well. But once again, more lost spawning time, more workers going down. Stefano pulling a huge advantage now, up double the supply of his opponents.
How is Marine
You could argue that stuff like hiding the push is more important than a 6-worker start. Hiding the push is always important. If anything, I'd say it's more important now. And he did a particularly poor job at hiding moving across the map, if that was his goal. No? It's more important now because people have much tighter responses to everything. This just seems like every single road shot in. Yeah, unless you have a game where you say the 6 worker start was very good, I'm not super interested in this argument anymore. Like, I'll need to see examples of games where the 6 worker start specifically did something very special to make it much better. Because I feel like most people that use the 6 worker start just like nostalgia. It's like, oh, when the 6 worker start was there, life was good. I was still in high school and had a lot of free time. This is maybe a bad example because this game just ends with a roach all in roughly 1 minute slower than in a Legacy of the Void game. Okay, so send me a game that you like. Like, if it was so much better, it should be really easy to find hundreds of games that are better than the games currently. Okay, now I'm excited for it.
Codex.
ESL Codex. MVP versus Squirtle final. Set 3.
It's a tricky map here.
Okay, that will copyright strike me hardcore.
He needs to come back. He needs to focus his ideas. Right now he's going up against a Mewtwo nerd.
Okay. I'll keep my notepad open to write stuff down as well.
Guess what? Squirrel doesn't have any bug attacks, guys. He may as well be a fighting type if he's up against Mewtwo.
Wow.
He is a Mewtwo Terran, man.
Mewtwo Terran. Oh, start calling him to do that at
Unfortunately, Squirtle doesn't have a Master Ball. Wow. What do you do, man? What do you do? You get one of those things. You have to be really careful where you use it. Alright, so we got the double cast over again. Probably going to be a fast expansion. But of course, you know, you could have some sort of mind game setup where MVP Scout thinks, probably a fast expansion for pros in each. You know, pro, and as you leaves, maybe you go ahead and put more pros on tech. I'd love to see a build like that.
You know, I think if I can make a prediction here, if MVP wins this game, I can almost 100% guarantee a cheese MVP next game.
Oh, yeah, I think that's actually
That's when it's like,
pretty well
you might as
said.
well start cheesing, you have enough room.
Yeah, he actually did make builds in game 1 and 2.
Yeah, he played
Just
complete
mute
game.
it?
MVP saying, no, I only want
Yeah, it might be best. Okay, Zealot opener versus a Marine opener. So this guy's playing a gasless expand. And the first scout hits 3 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. It was 2 times speed, now it's 1.4. If I recall correctly. Or 1.37 or 1.42. It was like some weird numbers. Okay, he's going for 4 barracks. The other guy is going for 3 gates. Chrono boosting the warp gate. Twice. And then the gateways finish. So he scouted an expo. Theoretically, this is impossible, by the way. No? You can just have the Stalker further forward. But theoretically, it's impossible to scout this. That was just a problem with Wings of Liberty, not with the 6 worker start. Okay. We're now 6 minutes in. Nothing has happened. He moves around the map. And then we attack. Why is this a good game for the 6 worker start? Because I'm not quite seeing it. It seems like neither player scouted each other's move out. Neither player had the watchtower. And then you get a weird game. But I don't understand what having this game start slower does anything in this case. Yeah, this was at 2 times speed as well. So the first interaction is a complete... This is basically just like a 3-Rex build where the other player goes for a 4-gate blink and they miss each other on the map. He baited the attack with the second base, then all in when the Terran ran around. I mean, I think they just missed each other. I'm not sure if you can bait an attack with the second base. It seems to me like the plan was always already to attack with pure Marine because he took his gas so late and was going for 4 racks. So this has nothing to do with the scouting. This is a predetermined build. 4 racks before gas. So you have no stim, no combat. You're gonna need to push with naked Marines. There's no decision making here. No? Squirtle does a predetermined build. MVP does a predetermined build. The only time that MVP maybe doesn't move out is if the other guy is doing one base. But I don't think that is I don't think that is anything that is lost with the 6 worker. I don't understand what 6 worker has to do anything with this. There's no recall back then. I was thinking, why doesn't he just recall? But you can't recall. The macro is also very poor. I don't enjoy watching old games because of that. I think when the Caspa boys came in, it really changed. Like, I don't understand how this game is an argument at all for 6 worker. I feel like it's so hard to make a good argument for 6 worker. Because I haven't heard one yet. So it's like the only good argument that I have is that it's much better for lower level players. That is like, and it's a really good argument, but no one is using that. Or not as much as they should. In my opinion, that's the real, you know? If you want to fight for 6 worker, hell yeah. Lower level players freaking love that stuff. You have way more time to build up. Like right now, if I'm teaching someone new the game, when I was teaching my sister-in-law the game and a zealot ran in like a minute and a half into the game, it's like, holy crap. Like there was no time to mentally prepare, you know? So that was very frustrating for lower level players, for newer players. I can completely see that. I think that's a really good argument. I don't understand how the start of this game is so much more boring than a Legacy of the Void game. This particular game? I mean, nothing happened for the first 6, 7 in-game minutes. Nothing. There was no meaningful interaction between the 2 players at all. There was legit nothing. We had not a single interaction. None. Isn't that exactly the point? Well, look, the argument that he made earlier was that there's more meaningful interaction with a 6 worker start. And then he shows me a game where both players miss each other's army and they base trade without having any interaction in the first 5 minutes, 6 minutes of the game. So to me, this... if you want to make the argument that it's good that there is no interaction at all in the first 7 minutes, then yes, 6 worker start is better. I think so too. If you want less interactions between players, 6 worker start is better. Now, if we go to any single Max Packs versus Clam game, because that would be the equivalent of MVP versus Squirtle, I can literally type in any, and I'm confident that we're going to see way more interactions much, much faster between these 2 players. Because the game just kicks off faster.
Not letting the bowler play, running.
So, this is not a... I'm not even sure if I could... Like, this is a more meaningful interaction, the blocking of the CC, than what happened in the first 7 minutes of the other game. Because if you can delay the CC by 3-4 seconds, your first adept is going to be capable of potentially cancelling it. Now, a lot of this is also to do with the units. So not so much with the 6 worker start, that there are more interactions. Like Adept and Reaper, Reaper being capable of being built without a tech lab is absolutely great for early game interactions. Come on, Pig, show us some action. First units are out, boom, 2 minutes in, they start shooting each other already. And this is actually important. It is insanely important for Clem to get the scout on what the tech is. Like, it really is. And then Max Packs ideally wants to push this Reaper back so he can start running across the map with his Adept. So you're just going to have action the entirety of the early game. And behind this, they're still building up. So it's not like the building up phase is gone. It is just there are minor interactions that have an impact on the outcome of the game. But I'm not even sure if this is much to do with the 12 worker start, or if this is more to do with the fact that the Adept and the Reaper are just good units that force this. Why not start with 3 hatches and Nexus and Cybercore finishing? Honestly, if your goal is to get to action as fast as possible, you could probably skip the first minute. Although then you're locking out some builds, actually. I think 12 workers is pretty perfect for having the optimal amount of builds. Proxies on one base are still very viable. So you're not losing one base all-ins. Like you can proxy gate, you can proxy racks, you can proxy hatch. All of this is still viable, just like it was with the 6 worker start. I actually think 12 workers is pretty much the sweet spot. The only thing you could say is that first pylon proxies are worse. I think that is the only build that really got cut with the 12 worker start. First pylon proxies. So we're talking proxy 2 gate, proxy 3 gate. Because you have more minerals earlier now, you can't basically build a fast pylon on the other side of the map and have like a really quick rush. It is not possible. So you cut out that particular strategy. But everything else is still viable as much as it was before. You mentioned in the past few days that a different worker start would be cool. What worker count would you make that if you could do it as an experiment? I'm not necessarily tied to having 12 workers. I think there's nothing wrong with changing fundamentals of StarCraft 2. I think changing the worker start or the worker numbers is not super necessary. I wouldn't be opposed to having a change in how gas and minerals are mined, for example, like the speed of which workers move or the amount that they're taking back home, so that there's an imbalance between these two. If you change something in the foundation, then all strategies will need to change, which I think is fun, and people need to figure it out, which I think is a big part of strategy games, is kind of figuring out what is viable and what is not viable, what is good and what is not good. Like, I am not sitting here, game is perfect, never touch it again, 12 workers, best thing ever. I'm just saying that I think 6 workers in particular is quite bad from a high-level entertainment perspective, as well as a high-level playing perspective. These are the two things. If you're talking about a lower-level perspective, I'm on board with having a slower start, perhaps being more fun for the bottom 50% of the ladder. And those are important people. Like, I'm not saying this like, oh, it's just the bottom 50. And I'm like, no, these are important people, and maybe you have to throw these guys a bone every now and again. What about higher max supply count? I'm not opposed to any of these. I'm not sure if it would achieve anything, but I'm not some StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void fundamentalist that says that everything that was introduced in the big book written by the Blizzard boys back then is perfect. I'm just saying that in particular the 6 worker start, I haven't seen any good arguments for, except for lower level players. So we're now 4 minutes in. We've had one pretty major interaction with the Adepts already. We're now we now have some minor pokes with Hellions, and then we do a mine drop. And I think after that, there is some downtime after the initial mine drop. I think because you have slightly better eco, most builds tend to be a little less all-in, which I think is good as well. So you can do aggression while also macroing. I think back in the day, there was a bigger difference between macro and an aggressive play most of the time. It was harder to mix the two. I'm not sure if that was because builds were inefficient or because of how the economy worked. I need to look into it, but it's hard because even if you copy builds from back then, a lot of them are going to be slightly inefficient. So I just need to look into it. As an average noob, I enjoyed the 6 worker era. It's hard to manage 3 bases, 4 bases quickly all the time. Yeah, I'm with you. I completely understand that. Absolutely. I was happy with 2 base macro games and sometimes going to 3 base. That would be big for me. Yeah. You could probably still just play 2 base, just the other guys are going to have 3. But at lower level, most of the time, anything is viable. That's also the beauty of lower level games. Like, you can play whatever you want. If you just execute it well, it's okay. I feel like it's so hard to compare the amount of interactions as well, because I think the units right now are way more prone to having interactions. So it's not like this wouldn't be possible theoretically with a 6 worker start. It's just we didn't do those builds then, and War Prism didn't have the long range pickup. I'm sure building costs were a bit different. So it's like it would have all hit later, but so it's like unfair saying that this is better because of the 12 worker starts. I think this is better because I think the game is better generally. I think the maps are much better now as well, which tends to invite interaction a bit more than in the past. So yeah, it's hard. I just haven't seen any really compelling arguments yet for 6 workers at high level.